By now, we've all had a chance to either play or play against Nostilla and Aberration. And the question is, models as powerful as they are available to every faction in the game, is it a good thing for the game? My name's Ryan. I used to be good at War Machine. Welcome to Spell Rack. Something that I think is really cool in War Machine right now is the availability of mercenaries, and really the wide availability of mercenaries, namely the junior warcasters or warlocks. Now, we've had Carver and Magnus for a while now, and Nostilla is the new addition, and new factions are starting to see juniors in faction, Old Umbry and what will be the new Dusk faction. The current Dusk faction will have an additional junior warcaster. I love the idea of junior warcasters in limited battle groups. I think they're a ton of fun. I think they add a lot of diversity to the game. I actually really love the weakness that if you lose the caster, that the beast, the heavy, the construct dies. So last year, Big Pig was a problem. He was in every list and he was dominant inside of the meta. And that brought a question to light of if a model is available to all armies, is it broken? If a model is available to all armies, is it bad for the game? I want to re-ask that question now with Nostilla here for one reason very specifically. We look at her card and we look at her abilities, she has awe. Now, we can get into what she does in a greater sense and what Aberration does in a greater sense. I guess really quickly, it's worth saying that they're both very good. I think that they're at least on par with the other juniors. I actually think they're much better. Aberration has a lot of output and an ability to fix mat or damage to really increase output. Nostilla here has more utility than any of the other juniors with Revive specifically. But what I really want to talk about, like I said, is awe. So what we've done is we've introduced an ability. While within 5 inches of this model, living enemy models suffer -2 to attack. We all know that in War Machine, being living is probably one of the biggest debuffs that you can have. As a living model, lots of things affect you and they don't affect undead or construct. And there are fewer things that will affect undead and construct, though there are a few. So the question is, this pair is, I would say, overtuned. This pair is available to every faction in the game. So the question is it okay to have a broken model with every faction? And to some extent, the answer is sure. Yeah. I mean, everybody can play it, right? I have access to it. You have access to it. So what's the problem? Well, they are just that powerful that they are going to be annoying to play against. And a model like this is going to be meta warping. Specifically, Nostilla with awe is not just meta warping, it's meta warping to only a specific part of the meta. If you have an army that is all living, so I'm looking at Brineblood Marauders is all living models. Shadow Flame is all living models. New Old Umbry, all living models. Infernals, Dark Operations that are sort of being revived into a major faction. All living model. You look at some of the other factions like Signar or Kador, and at least you have constructs. You look at Orgoth, same thing, they have constructs, but they do also have some monstrosities. And then you look at an army like Dusk. Dusk has a lot more undead models, so they can get away from it a little bit more. And then obviously Crix has all undead models. And they're going to, really just kind of dodge this bullet. So we have a model that is likely overtuned and everybody has access to it. It's not the worst outcome. It should be fixed. We don't want to see this pair show up as much as we saw Big Pig show up before. The side of it that is, I think, really hard for the game is the presence of awe and how pushed this model is. She can play very far up the field with Succor as a way of saving her from range attacks. So if you can put her up behind any warrior model, right? It's not friendly faction warrior model. She can't just succor to the aberration. She can succor to anything. You could put her in Kador behind 3 Mana War and they're armor 20 with 10 boxes, and she can succor to them all day long while projecting a 5-inch aura in front of them that says to an old Umbry player, if you charge me with your heavy, you're -2 to hit. Now, in the case of Mana War, their defense 10, they go up to 12. It's not a big deal. What about cats in Dusk? If I'm defense 13 and I go to 15, that changes a lot of math. And so I really am curious why this ability is on this model. It just feels like it's a little bit much to me. And I do think that it needs to be looked at in January. Now, we haven't seen the full effects of her presence on the battlefield because a lot of people are still getting the model, or they haven't had it painted yet, or they haven't shown up to a tournament or learned to put it in their pair. And specifically, I would say they haven't learned to abuse awe to the ability that it can be abused to really change a game. And that's a game for half the population. So where it's going to be really hard is if you have an opponent that has Nostilla in one of the lists, just one of their lists, and you're playing trolls, who do you drop? Do you expect the Nostilla player to show up with her because of awe, because of how good it is against you? Does it put you into a, sort of a list pickle problem? Obviously, I talked about in another video the versatility of the spell rack and cards these days, making most lists all comers lists. So the presence of Nostilla against a Shadow Flame Shard might suggest that you need map fixing. You need to go get something off your rack that fixes map. And that's how you deal with this. And so you're forced to pick one of your rack slots. Okay, so now all this said, the kind of negatives, let's talk about some answers in the short term. Hopefully she loses on in January. I'm just going to say that. In the short term, how do you answer this model? Well, I think the biggest weakness is spells. If you can put an arc node near her and gun her down with some spells, she can die. Defense 16, armor 14, 10 boxes. Maybe she camps a focus or two. Way easier said than done, but you could do it. Another item is shooting her. As I noted, Sucker is going to be tough. She can get up there pretty aggressively and be pretty darn safe. But if you were to put your entire army into killing those sucker targets and her, especially if you haven't attacked Aberration yet, you could pick up a lot of value. So maybe you can brute force your way through Sucker. That's going to be hard to do, but maybe it's the option you're left with. The other thing I would say that does kind of work is blast damage. Obviously, sprays don't work because she's still being hit by a range attack and you can just sucker those. That's not like shield guard. Blast damage, if you could put a POW 8 blast damage from a heavy onto her and then boost it, you're looking at a POW 8, you boost, you're looking at a POW 18. If she's not camping, she takes 4 damage. Then maybe it gives you a chance to get in there with a spell to maybe nuke her down. So there are some options. Obviously, the easiest thing you could do is if you could clear a lane and you can charge her. The problem there is if you charge her with a living model, she's defense 16, and now you're under all. And now you just have, she's defense 18, and that's really hard. You can get, if you're lucky enough to have constructs, you can get a Warjack in there. That's different. Where she will be additionally oppressive is factions that can really build on this ability and add to it. This is, armies that already have plus defense feats or something that add a dice to your opponent where they have to drop the lowest. Being able to put her up front in those circumstances with some other defense buffs is where awe is really going to become oppressive. And it could turn a medium level feat into a true powerhouse. And that happens in 2 ways. It says -2, a feat might say also +2 defense. And so you're now skewed by 4. The other side of it might be the wall of living warrior models that you put in front of her to try to save her with Sucker is going to be that much harder to kill if they've got a defensive buff or an armor buff. Say armor is another thing. It doesn't have to be defense. You could be, if you're in Signar, you could be -2 to hit from awe and then +3 armor on the Sucker targets from Arcane Shield. And so it just presents a significant problem. I love that she exists. I love that Steamforged Games gave her to us really for free with a 1-year subscription. I think that stuff is fantastic. I like that it's a good model. I think it should be a good model. I think giving something to everyone that's good is amazing. It's a level of kindness and generosity from a company that we don't normally see. I just want her to lose all. Thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.